I'm Jim Hummel, and we have new information this week on some of our previous investigations. We begin with the Wickford Junction Train Station, which is already costing taxpayers more than $500,000 a year just to maintain. Well, now we've learned that another $300,000 is going for state-mandated art projects at the station. It is titled Semaphore and was designed by a team of Seattle-based artists and installed at Wickford Junction last fall at a cost of $140,000. At night, the mosaic changes colors, and during the day, visitors can see it from Route 102 aligned with a sculpture that looks like a train signal. State law mandates that 1% of the cost of all public building construction projects be set aside for publicly funded art. And because Wickford Junction, which opened nearly 3 years ago, cost $44 million, it qualified for hundreds of thousands of dollars in art projects, commissioned by the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts. A second sculpture titled All Aboard is scheduled to be installed once the ground is thawed out in front of the station. It comes with a price tag of $175,000 from an artist in Wyoming. That's a total cost to taxpayers of $315,000 for the two pieces of artwork. But that's a fraction of what the state has had to pay just to maintain the mammoth 4-story garage that remains largely vacant. The DOT pays a management company $45,000 a month to run the garage. Throw in electricity, snow removal, and landscaping, and the total cost is $650,000 a year. For a garage that officials hope will eventually draw more than 1,000 cars a day, willing to pay $4 to park there. Fewer than 100 cars a day parked there now, in a garage built to hold 1,100. But the state hasn't gotten any parking revenue since July of 2013, because the DOT adopted a tri-transit program to encourage ridership that included free parking. DOT reports a 16% increase in ridership, but many of those are dropped off at the station and don't pay to park, even if the state were charging. That promotion is scheduled to end soon, but for now, parking is free. There's been a dramatic turn of events surrounding an illegal parking lot on the east side of Providence. After suing the owners a year ago and threatening them with fines for years of violations, the city of Providence did an abrupt about-face with virtually no explanation. After our story ran in late 2013, the city filed a lawsuit against Stephen Pulio and Michelle Booten, owners of this Gano Street lot near the entrance to Route 195. For years, the couple had allowed tenants of their nearby apartment house to park there, despite repeated threats of fines from the city because it was an illegal lot. The 2013 lawsuit asked the Superior Court to impose fines of $500 a day, dating to the beginning of the infractions in 2006. That translated to more than $1 million in penalties. But late last year, the city's legal department quietly settled the suit for $5,000, with no explanation to us or the neighbors who had objected. That paved the way for the lot owners to ask and receive permission from the city's zoning board earlier this month to allow parking again, despite objections from a neighborhood association, which had waged a successful but expensive legal battle nearly a decade ago, citing safety concerns. The legal counsel to the zoning board, Lisa Dinnerman, filed the lawsuit against Pulio and Booten on behalf of the city. She said nothing this month when board chairman Mirth York asked the owner's lawyer if there had been any problems at the property. The solicitor's office says the board was aware of the history of violations but approved the variance anyway. The city initially refused to disclose how much the settlement was or why it had been reached until we pressed the issue after the zoning board approval. We learned how much, but not why. As of this week, the owners had not yet started using the lot again for parking. A metals recycling business along the Providence waterfront that we first looked at in 2012 is finally being sued by D.E.M and the Attorney General's office for repeated violations, 5 years after they were first cited. Rhode Island Recycled Metals received permission from the state to set up shop on Allens Avenue in 2009 to scrap the old Russian sub, which had sunk in the Providence River 2 years earlier. But the operation quickly expanded, and less than a year later, D.E.M's inspectors were regular visitors, having received complaints about environmental violations. The state told the company to clean up its act, literally, but found repeated violations culminating in a formal notice in 2012. A year later, the two sides reached a consent agreement with the expectation that the owners would fix the violations, but they continued, according to the state. On March 4th, D.E.M and the Rhode Island Attorney General's office filed a suit in Superior Court against the company, citing a failure to live up to the consent order. Save the Bay had repeatedly questioned why the state was not putting some bite behind its bark. And although a D.E.M spokeswoman offered a timeline and explanation, the suit was not filed until 5 years after the first complaint was filed by the agency. The vast majority of our story ideas come from you. So if you have a tip or suggestion, send it to me directly and confidentially at jim@hummelreport.org.